Hey guys, it's Alex Base here. Today I've got the Realme GT 7 Pro, and this is a flagship killer device. I thought they were gone, but this is definitely making a huge comeback. Cheers to Realme for that. And it's got great specs for the price. This specifically is the 12 gigabytes of RAM, 512 gigabytes of storage. You can get that one roughly, I think it starts at something like 760 euros in Europe, and in Britain probably it's going to be about 640 pounds. It's got relatively little availability, unfortunately. It is like market dependent, but it's a great device nonetheless. And it's got the latest and greatest Snapdragon 8 Elite chipset. And I already tested that one on the Samsung S25 Ultra. It is a great chipset and great performance, that's for sure. This one here particularly has got a Gorilla Glass 7i protection on the front and also a screen protector. Nice touch from Realme. It's got an aluminium frame, and on the back is Panda glass. And it's got IP69 rating for water and dust resistance, which is great. It's actually down to 2 meters of water for up to 30 minutes, and it also can survive hot water jets of up to 80 degrees Celsius from all sides. Superb for that price. It's got a triple camera on the back, a 50 megapixel main snapper, 50 megapixel telephoto lens with 2x optical zoom, and a 8 megapixel ultra wide. Yeah, I know about the ultra wide, but it is what it is. On the front, we've got a 16 megapixel selfie, and also it's got many other stuff going on for it. It's got some things that are missing. After all, Realme had to make some sacrifices to keep the price low. And how good this phone is, well, let's delve into it and find out. Let's do a quick unboxing. And the box is pretty thin, so probably no charger in it. Let's see. Oh, you do get a case, which is not a transparent silicone one, so it's a nice touch by Realme. And you also get a screen protector on the front, so kudos to Realme for that. There's the SIM ejection tool, of course. We've got the usual booklets, instructions and warranty. And there is a USB-C to A charging cable, as I can see. Yes, it is USB-A to USB-C, and that's it. Here are the main specs of the phone, and it looks pretty good for the price, and also with the case on, it's pretty good as well. It's got a IP69 rating, which is still better than Samsung and Apple, and much cheaper. It has got stereo speakers, but no Dolby Atmos support. It does have hollow audio, and you can also adjust the scenario in which you want to listen to them. Overall, they sound pretty good, and the top one is a little bit quieter than the bottom one, but that's to be expected. Let's hear them out. The GT 7 Pro has an ultrasonic fingerprint scanner, which is reliable and fast, and also comes out of the box running on Android 15, Realme UI 6.0. Realme promises 3 years of software updates and 4 years of security patches. The phone has some useful features, and you can change the modes, of course, in the settings from light to dark. And I prefer the dark mode. I think it's better and more efficient. And the color modes are 4, and you can choose between them and also adjust the color temperature. One very cool feature is that you can adjust the lowest allowed brightness, which is pretty awesome. You do have an always on display that you can turn on, but just bear in mind it consumes more battery. The Realme UI software is pretty customizable and you can adjust the edge lightening or the shape and color of the icons, for example. The Realme GT 7 Pro does have some AI features that can be useful. Not to me because I'm not into AI really, but it does have other smart features like smart sidebar or split view, also floating windows and one-handed mode. All these can be very useful in certain scenarios. It also has support for Chat GPT. The Realme GT 7 Pro has an LTPO Super AMOLED screen with 1 billion colors. It can go from 1 to 120 Hz, and also you can choose the resolution from standard Full HD to 1.5K at 1264 by 2780 pixels. It has also an HDR10 Plus support and Dolby Vision, and at 450 pixels per inch. It's very sharp. What does that mean in English? It means a top-class display. It's worth mentioning that this is a Samsung display panel and not BOE panel like on its bigger siblings OnePlus and Oppo. Speaking of OnePlus and Oppo, just like on them, the Realme has 3 refresh rate modes. And you can also add a specific app refresh rate. When you put it into high mode, 120 Hz, the screen goes up to 120 Hz, and when you're not interacting with it, drops down to 1 Hz. When you put it in auto select, it goes up to 120 Hz in Google Chrome, which was surprising to me. It used to be 90 Hz, now it's 120 Hz, which is great, and also goes down to 1 Hz. In standard mode at 60 Hz, it goes up to 60 Hz and then 1 Hz when you're not interacting with the screen. When you go to the Google Chrome, it's again 60 Hz and 1 Hz all the way down. In Google Maps, in all modes, it's 60 Hz and down to 1 Hz after it. In videos, it alternates between 30 and 60 Hz. When it comes to gaming, I got 120 Hz out of my favorite Asphalt Legends, so high frame rate gaming is completely possible on the Realme GT 7 Pro. The phone is powered by Qualcomm's Flagship Snapdragon 8 Elite chipset. To maximize the performance, you can turn on the GT mode, which is essentially the turbo mode on the GT 7 Pro. I ran Geekbench 6 in both modes, and in GT mode it gave me some peculiar results. Higher single core but lower multi-core score. That is pretty curious. When it comes to stability and put under stress, it shows much better results than the Samsung S25 Ultra with the same chipset. Moving on to the battery, the GT 7 Pro has a humongous 6,500 mAh battery with 120 watt super fast charging. For the Indian market, however, the battery capacity is reduced to 5,800 mAh. 1 hour of gaming took down the battery by 9%, which is overall good. 1 hour of videos took it down by 4%. 1 hour of web browsing took it down by 4% as well. And 1 hour of phone calls took it down by only 2%, which is exceptional battery life. Since the phone doesn't come with a charger, I had to source my own, and I happened to have a 120 watt SuperVOOC charger around. However, I suspect that any 120 watt charger would do really. Charging the phone with the 120 watt SuperVOOC charger from 0% to 100% only took 39 minutes. This is fantastic super fast charging. And again, fast charging does not damage your battery. Now moving on to the cameras, we've got a main 50 megapixel Sony IMX906 sensor with optical image stabilization, telephoto lens 3x optical zoom, 50 megapixel Sony IMX882 with optical image stabilization, an ultra wide 8 megapixel Sony IMX355, and on the front we've got a 16 megapixel Sony IMX480 with a fixed focus. Kicking off with the selfies, they are okay overall. The dynamic range is good and the colors are okay. And in portrait shots, you can get good separation of the subject. Moving on to the main camera, it does good portrait shots and photos of others. The skin tones are well judged and the facial detail isn't half bad either. The bokeh effect is also balanced. The day shots from the Realme GT 7 Pro are flagship great. There is no noise to speak of. The detail is excellent. The processing is also mature. And the dynamic range is very good. The white balance is spot on. The colors are vivid without going over the top. The ultra wide shots from the 8 megapixel sensor are pretty much the best you can get from such a small sensor. And the dynamic range and the colors are okay. The noise is really well managed and the detail is good. But again, it really should have been a bigger sensor here, but Realme had to make cuts to keep the price low. So I'm going to give kudos to Realme for getting the very best out of this small ancient sensor. The 2x shots are solid and they are very usable. There's a little bit of softness in them, as I have found out on other devices. However, when you go to the 3x zoom, that will be your best zooming shot on the Realme GT7 Pro. The 3x zoom has a very good dynamic range and the colors are also looking great. The detail is preserved and they're pretty good overall. The 6x digital zoom, which is cropped from the main camera rather than the 2 and the 3x done by the telephoto, is still very good overall. It's very usable without setting any standards. You can check out the rest of the images I took out throughout the day, and then you can let me know in the comment section what you think of them. The night selfies on the Realme GT7 Pro are consistent and the portrait shots as well. And the detail is okay and the colors are pretty good and that wide dynamic range is very nice. Overall, these are one of the better night selfies on a device in this price range. The shots from the main camera at night are also good overall and they're a bit underexposed, but the detail is still pretty good, as well as the dynamic range is okay. The white balance is also on point. Occasionally you can notice some over processing and over sharpening, but that's only in the highlights of the image. The ultra wide shots are again reasonably good for what it is, and it again better than I expected and better probably than you would expect out of them. The detail is okay again and the dynamic range is okay. The colors are accurate most of the time. So in other words, these are pretty usable images. The 2x shots are okay overall, but they are over processed and a little bit on the lower side in terms of detail, but still very usable. The 3x shots are excellent. The dynamic range is very good. The colors are also good and they do seem to be natural as well. The 6x zoom, which is again digital, it is a little bit softer, understandably so, and it is a bit over processed as well, but at the end of the day, it's still very usable at night. Now let's move on to the video. The GT7 Pro can shoot up to 8K at 24 frames per second with the main camera. However, the images here in the video are compressed due to the format. It's impractical to use them on a non-8K screen, really. This is 1080p at 60 frames per second. Okay. 8K, 24 frames per second. Ultra wide 1080p, 30 frames per second. It cannot be done any more than that, unfortunately. 2x zoom, 4K, 30 frames per second. Three times zoom, 30 frames per second. 4K, 30 frames per second, 6x zoom. Let's say. There we go. 4K 60 frames per second. Frames per second with Dolby Vision. It's 1080p, 60 frames per second. "4K 60 frames per second main camera. "4K 60 frames per second with Dolby Vision. "8K 24 frames per second. "4K 60 frames per second, 2x zoom. "4K 60 frames per second, 3x zoom." Wel, de eerste kijk. Six times zoom, 4K, 60 frames per second, 4K. Ultra wide, 1080p, 30 frames per second. Well, there you have it, folks. The Realme GT7 Pro. Fantastic phone overall for the price and a true flagship killer with actually flagship performance. It is lacking, does not have an eSIM support, and the 8 megapixel ultra wide is iffy. You know, it is what it is. And does not have wireless charging and no charger in the box. But it covers every other single area perfectly. If you can forgive the eSIM, the wireless charging, and also the fact that it's got only 4 years of support, 3 years of software support, and 4 years of security patches from Realme, this is a phone that you definitely have to look at if you're in the market for a £600 to £700 phone. And it's getting many things right with it. Definitely impressed me. Well, thank you very much for watching and see you next time. Ciao.